Good evening, YouTube. This is Ty, your Metalhead Weatherman. I hope you guys have had a great day and are having a good evening right now. We have a lot to unpack here in this current video, so this might be a pretty long one. That being said, before we get into it, if you guys are liking what you're seeing from me, hopefully you guys like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, try to get the word out. Whether it's just to share my channel or just share the video just so the people around you can be informed of the upcoming weather. So we're going to move to the National Weather Service page, and we can actually see here that there's actually a tornado warning in central Florida. I'm going to take a look at this real quick. Right around southwestern Lake County in east central Florida and west central Orange County. So this is a radar indicated tornado, but that just goes to show that even though we were saying that the risk factor was a little bit lower in Florida today, doesn't mean severe weather can't happen. So don't panic even when you're under a marginal risk, but don't let your guard down either. This is just a little reminder for everyone. So from here, we're going to go to the severe weather outlook here and see just what we have going on. And as we can see here, that yesterday, remember how I mentioned that this area right here, it went back and forth between a slight risk, and now it has gone back to slight risk, and it seems like that was a good decision considering the fact that we now have a tornado warning in this region that they have now highlighted. So as we go further and further forward, we'll notice a lot going on here. So today we have a slight risk, and then if you look on Wednesday, the marginal risk hasn't changed, but it's a pretty big area of a marginal risk as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a slight risk, and I'd say the conditions would probably be the most favorable right about here, just south of Columbus and into Valdosta, Georgia. Maybe going as far east as Jacksonville and as far south as well. Maybe even Daytona Beach. Time will only tell. We'll take a closer look, and I may go back on that. But we look at the categorical risk here. There's only a 2% chance of tornadoes, but just as I said a moment ago, we weren't expecting much of a tornado threat today in central Florida, yet we have a tornado warning going on. Wind and hail is probably going to be the biggest threat tomorrow, but even then it's not expected to be much. But I'll reemphasize again, we have a tornado warning in central Florida, where yesterday it was a marginal risk and a 2% chance of tornado. So that just goes to show how much that can actually mean, because really all it takes is one big storm to really mess things up for you, maybe even change your life. God forbid that happens to anyone, but it's just a reminder. Don't get caught slipping. So that's our day 2 risk. We're going to move on to day 3 here, and we now have a slight risk towards eastern Texas once again. A bigger chunk of Louisiana this time, and then the Gulf Coast. We're just north of New Orleans this time, and we're heading towards areas like Biloxi, Mississippi, Jackson. I think we're just a little bit too far south for Tupelo. And then interestingly enough, we have another marginal risk. This time it's for areas like, I wouldn't say Charleston just yet, but maybe just to the north of Charleston. We have Raleigh, and maybe even getting a little bit close to the Washington, D.C. area, Baltimore even. So, I mean, that's something interesting to look at as well. Risk isn't expected to be high, but keep in mind, once again, that you don't have to have a level 5 out of 5 high risk in order to get a bad storm. So definitely be on your toes, because the last thing you want is to be caught by surprise. and then asking yourself, what are you going to do? So we're getting a little bit further out into the long range here, and I want you to look at day 4 here. We now have a 15% chance. We've upgraded from the predictability too low that we had in this yesterday. So we have a 15% risk area, which is already grounds for a slight risk when it gets to day 3 tomorrow. We have areas like New Orleans, Montgomery, Mobile, Columbus, New Orleans, Louisiana, Montgomery, Alabama, Mobile, Alabama, Columbus, Georgia, Tallahassee, Florida, Panama City, and a few other areas that are already under this 15% area. And this could expand. We're going to look at these parameters a little bit further, but we're going to look at these as the other days as well. So we have day 5 being potential too low, so it'll be a little break for everybody. Also want to mention, while we've mainly been talking about severe weather, I'm gonna go on a little tangent here and kind of underline this area in particular. You guys have been seeing a lot of rain lately, so you might want to be on guard for potential flash flooding. Because as this active weather pattern continues, there's only going to be so much moisture the ground's going to be able to take in. So as the ground becomes more saturated, that risk is going to increase for you guys. So that being said, if you're in a low-lying area, definitely be on watch and keep an eye on your local weather listings. So we're going to look at we look at day 5, potential too low, and then potential's low on day 6. Usually around day 7 and 8, we don't have much going on. They usually say potential too low or predictability too low, not this time. And this is something that I'm going to be watching really closely over the coming days. Rarely do you see the National Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center go with a 15% risk on day 7 or day 8. So this is definitely something to pay attention to if you're in these areas. Dallas, it looks like you're in it this time. Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Fort Worth, and even areas like western Arkansas, and a tiny little southern slither of Oklahoma, and the western sliver, and a little sliver of western Louisiana. Definitely keep an eye on this in the days to come, because this could be a big deal. I will of course be posting videos about this, and it looks like I'm going to be posting for a while because this weather pattern has gotten really active. Let's take a look at day 8 again. The threat shifts east and stretches a little bit further north. It looks a little bit more widespread. We're about moved out of Texas at this point, and now New Orleans, Jackson, Tupelo, Birmingham, maybe even Montgomery, Biloxi, maybe Tallahassee. Be on the lookout for potential severe weather 8 days from now, which would be the 23rd. So without further ado, let's actually get an idea of what the National Weather Service is seeing. I know they've been looking at the GFS. We know they're looking at the Euro. They're comparing models and trying to see exactly what... I'm losing my words right now. I know they're trying to get an idea of what could happen in the coming days. So if we look here, we can already see that there's unsettled weather in Florida right now, producing tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings. That will continue into the late night hours. And then we also can notice that this low pressure here that's here now was down here earlier. It's going to start to pivot around the southeast, and that's going to be a catalyst for our upcoming severe weather threat in the Carolina coast and maybe even the Delmarva Peninsula. So as we move forward here, you see what looks to be a line of storms trying to develop here. And we're going to watch this move off. And then we're going to see our next system form here. So really no rest for the weary, to be honest with you. So as we move further and further forward, we can see a little bit of a snow system, like a little bit of a backside snow event on this low, right along the north and the west, hitting areas like Omaha, hitting Kansas, maybe Topeka, getting into Iowa, heading towards the Great Lakes. Green Bay may start out as snow and flicker back and forth between rain and snow. Then onward we move. Trying not to miss you guys that are getting snow as well. You guys are important too. So this becomes a little bit of a small scale interior northeast Great Lakes event. Northern Maine, you're in play for this too. You'll start out as snow and probably end out as rain, to be honest. And you may get some snow flurries in behind it. And then, before we know it, this is next Monday, 21st, another weather system forms. This one's looking pretty bona fide. We've dropped under that 1,000 millibar pressure mark, which is indication of a very impressive storm. And we can clearly see it. We see an area of potential severe weather developing around Texas, right around early morning hours, and maybe going on a little bit later into the day. GFS kind of has us showing a potential for storms, I think, a little bit further north than what the National Weather Service has outlined. We'll look at a few more models just to make sure. But by the time we hit Wednesday here, it's about our day 8 risk. It's still showing something a little bit further north than what the National Weather Service is outlining, but computer's starting to freeze. Oh, no, it's not. Then as we look at Wednesday here, definitely seeing a trend towards a damaging wind threat. This threat works its way through the southeast into northern Alabama and Georgia in the late hours of next Thursday, of the following Thursday on the 24th. Then it dissipates. Things get quiet again for a little while. Couple clipper systems rolling through the northeast. Then we see a little bit of disturbed weather trying to get its act together around Texas, but at this point we're really far out, so we're about 282 hours out. So there's nothing very certain about this net here. And my computer doesn't seem any more certain about it either, as it continues to kind of lock up on me. Come on now. Don't do this to me. Oh, brother. There we go. So we get to about 300 hours out. I just wanted to make it to the end of the model. All right, we've made it. Things look pretty quiet. Towards the end of this run here, I do see a little bit of a low pressure that comes up from the Gulf and maybe causes more unsettled weather, some rain towards the southeast. We'll keep an eye on that as time goes on, because once you get to about really 150 hours out, there are a lot of details to hammer down still, a lot of questions to be answered. So I take all of that with a grain of salt once we get past 150 hours particularly. Really, you can't be sure until about maybe 48 to 72 hours, if even that. So, of course, like I said earlier, we have multiple models to look at. We're going to look at another long-range model. We're going to look at the European model, and my computer is freezing a lot. Sheesh. Okay, there we go. So, it's pretty much the same drill. Uh-oh. Come on now. So we're looking at the same drill here. Complex of storms move into Florida. This low is pivoting around in the southeast, causing all sorts of undisturbed weather, kicking off a little bit of severe weather towards the Carolina coast. This hasn't really... Okay, there's our severe weather threat. The Euro is kind of showing more of a nocturnal threat with this upcoming system, and then by Friday we're looking at what looks to be a real hot mess here. Looks like a line of storms trying to form. Doesn't quite get its act together, but I do see some stuff that could be out ahead of it that might be worth watching. Of course, we're past the 72-hour mark, so there's still stuff that we're going to need to learn about this. I'm going to try to actually take a sounding here. I'm not too good with reading soundings right now. This is information I still need to learn about and build on. Doesn't look like there's a lot of convection with it from the little bit I have researched. So from the looks of it, yeah, I'm not very convinced by any of this right now on anything. I don't even know if I should have looked at that. It's not telling me anything that's like giving me any sort of clue as to whether or not we're going to get what mode of severe weather or just how intense it'll be at the moment. But pretty much the same drill in regards to clipper systems in the northeast. And then as we move into Monday, Euro again has a nocturnal type event going on late night, early evening into the late night hours for Texas. Really starts to get its act together Tuesday. We see another line of storms forming, working its way to the east. Then by Tuesday, low pushes to the north. And this could be interesting because on the north side of just a little bit south of this, on the northern tier of this line of thunderstorms, we could get enough turning of the winds with height to where there could be some spin up tornadoes. Like I said, this is over a week out, so we have to take this with a grain of salt. As we move further and further forward, this line starts to deteriorate. We get another snowstorm in the interior northeast, or you start out as snow and then you end as rain. Might be another severe weather threat for the East Coast. And by late Thursday, it's out of there, and then things are starting to quiet down again. So we've looked into the long range. Let's get into the short range here. Let's see if I can exit out a couple of these so that way my computer doesn't slow down so much. So now that we've talked about the short range, let's take a look at, we've actually talked about the long range. Keep fumbling my words, I apologize. So let's take a look at the short range models here and see what we might have going on within the next couple of days, because we can at least get more answers out of what's going on in the next couple of days versus the next week. Main reason I wanted to show you all that is so that way you can kind of have an idea of what could be possible later this week. We'll continue making videos. I'll continue making updates so that way I can keep you guys up to date and ahead. So we look right now in Florida, some very juicy dew points. We're in the 60-degree plus mark. So I don't know if you guys can hear that jet. No need to apologize for that, honestly, on my part, because I can't control that. But if you do hear it, I guess I apologize. But as we move further and further forward, you can see some of these dew points trying to sneak their way a little bit further to the north. Like I said, the area of interest to me definitely seems like South Georgia in particular. That area seems like it's going to have the most moisture, most likely the most CAPE as well. Then Thursday, we see that little bit of a spike in dew points there. And then we also see a spike of dew points in Texas again. So that's kind of outlining our slight risk. and Friday is then early morning Friday is the end of the NAM model. We only can look about 60 hours out on this. 60 models, sheesh. So let's take a look at the cape for this, a low-level jet as well, or mid-level jet for this, I should say. Still a work in progress with using all these forecast models. I'm not used to having all of these tools at my access at my fingers all at once, so bear with me. So we're going to look at the mixed layer cape here. So we have limited cape over Florida right now. Severe weather is probably still going to be limited, but it is possible. So as we're looking later towards the day, we see the cape starting to build, and there's still not much of it. Maybe towards the late evening hours you might get something to pop off in southern Georgia. Still not going to be much. Still not much to go around, so a lot of these storms are going to be competing with each other. Probably still going to be a linear event, kind of leaning more towards damaging wind. Thursday, cape's about pretty much the same thing. Not very much to work with. North Carolina might have severe weather for a little bit longer. And then look towards the late evening hours. Look at how this cape just starts shooting up into Texas. That is crazy to watch. It's a pretty considerable amount of it. We're looking at the 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram. Maybe even inching higher than that. Closing in on the 2,000. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that unfolds. So that's the end of that model run. So that's the end of the model run there. We're going to look at the bulk shear real quick. You can see we have a little bit of low level energy around Florida, especially right around that line of storms. You can almost kind of see where the storms are outlined, right about here. So as we go further and further forward, very limited amount of wind shear, so tornado threat's still going to be minimal. 1 or 2 is possible, but you do what you're supposed to do, you should be fine. I'm waiting on this to load up still, so I might end up moving a little slow here. So we have a little bit of lower level energy here. We do have a little bit of wind shear here around the coast of Georgia and just on the border of Georgia and Florida. Small little, what looks to be wind maximum. So tornadoes definitely can't be ruled out here. I think they are right on the 2%. Ah, come on, computer. Work with me here. There we go. So we do have a low-level jet that does work its way into the Carolinas and maybe even as far north as the Delmarva. So severe weather definitely is possible. You could also have a quick spin up there. And then definitely looking like a nocturnal event in Texas. Maybe even some nocturnal tornadoes could be possible. So if you're in Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, definitely pay attention to the weather Thursday night. Because the last thing you want is to wake up to a nocturnal tornado. That much is for sure. Let's take a look at the significance. Yeah, wow, I can't even speak. Come on. So we're going to take a look at the significant tornado parameter, or the STP. I'm going to try to make more acronyms now since I can't speak. So we're going to let this load here, and we're going to take a look. I don't expect anything really to be over Florida. Basically 1s, 2s, maybe 3s. You can see a little bit of higher values over the Atlantic, right off the coast, which is really interesting. So anyone that's doing a little bit of marine work or just sailing around just off the coast, be warned that there could be a possible water spout. So going further and further into Thursday, this is the day I'm most interested in here. and it doesn't really get up that high. This could uptick though, because I mean, I do see some parameters coming into play. So to anyone that's watching this video, if I call this, you owe me a like. How about that? If I end up calling the severe weather threat here and calling it increased tornado threat, you at least owe me one like. How about that? Does that sound fair? So we're gonna go back to the euro also. Try to see if we can actually get a look at some of the longer range severe weather days. They're like leading into next week, for example. So we're looking at Mixed Atlantic Cape again. So this is right about where the NAM 3 kilometer ended on its model run. So it seems there's definitely some Cape available in the southeast come Friday. Definitely works its way to the east. And usually the thing with these longer range forecast models, and this is why I don't really like looking at the Cape on stuff like the Euro and the GFS, is because more often than not, a lot of us in the weather community find that this ends up being downplayed. So if we're seeing 500s, you could expect to see maybe 1,000 joules or maybe even more than that. So this is definitely something to take note of for anyone that's interested in the weather field. Just kind of know what the quirks of each model are. Yeah, it just kind of gets fuzzy after that, so it's kind of a waste to go on here. Just trying to keep you guys updated. We're going to look at one more thing. This is a little bit more reliable as far as the lower level winds. We're going to the GFS. I feel like I'm about to burp here. Excuse me if you heard a little sound. But we're going to go to the GFS, and we're looking right around midnight, early morning hours of tomorrow. So we're going to see what kind of energy we have to work with here, what kind of winds we're dealing with. These storms also entail, these little swirls are also entailing of how much energy is in the atmosphere in general as a whole. So this not only looks at wind potential, but it also is just outlining energy in general. Of course, in the weather, we measure that by millibars pressure. So we're watching this really stout system move off to the north and east, push its way north of the Great Lakes. This isn't going to be a high wind event like that snowstorm that came through last week and brought snow to the south. But it's still going to have a little bit of wind, and it's going to cause a bit of trouble. But this is what I've been talking about earlier. This is that storm system Monday. Really starts to get its act together come Tuesday, and just look at that. You can definitely see that there's some vorticity there. You can definitely see that there's a lot of energy in the storm. And one thing that you also want to look for is these little isobars. As the storm strengthens, you'll see these isobars start to get tighter. So as we move forward, it doesn't look like it stays strong for too long. Yeah, looks like the model's actually starting to go haywire here, to be honest. And this is also why I don't really like trying to look too far into the long range, but this is definitely something that was worth talking about, so I had to take the risk. But we're at the end of the model run here. But we're definitely going to be looking at storms for next week and the end of this week. So as I've been saying, weather pattern is definitely starting to get more active. Business is starting to pick up in regards to severe weather. If I brought up your area in this video, definitely stay weather aware. So that's all I really have for you today. This is Ty, your Metalhead Weatherman. Sorry that this video is a little bit all over the place, kind of long, but I'll see if I can't make a shorter video tomorrow. Hope to see you guys on the next one. Have a good night.